Hello everyone. Let's start our lab 5. First, I will take you through the presentation slide, then we will talk about the lab overview. Okay, so from now on, I will be making a single video that includes both the presentation and the lab overview so that you don't need to go move back and forth with the uh, presentation and lab too. So, first of all, in this lab, we will be talking about carbon cycle. Uh, let's see what it is. In this lab, you will be asked three research questions at the end of the lab. As you already know, who have attempted those labs. So, number one is how can carbon be transferred between the atmosphere and Earth's other spheres, like biosphere, lithosphere, or any other places? Then, how would you describe the general change in the anthropogenic emission of carbon dioxide and the uptake of carbon dioxide by the atmosphere, oceans, and terrestrial biosphere from 1959 to 2014? So, almost all of the data we will be talking about is in this range from 1959 to 2014 because we don't have any updated data after 2014. So that's all we have right now, and that's enough for us to guess the trend. So that's number two question, and the final research question is how has the uptake of carbon dioxide affected the oceans and terrestrial biosphere? So how the carbon dioxide affected the human activities as well as ocean body, like the pH, water acidity or water alkalinity or water neutrality, what happened there. We'll look at that as well, and as well as we will look at our vegetation, our forest, and all other stuff in this whole lab. So this will be answered if you these three research questions will be answered, so if you go through those lab questions properly. So let me tell you one more thing again. uh, this video isn't necessary for you if you follow the instruction on the presentation that's already been uploaded in your PowerPoint, in your iCollege, as well as the description in the climate literacy lab. So there's no need for me to make this video. Still, I'm making that so that you at least feel like you have some support. That's my purpose. But other than that, almost all of the question, except for the hypothesis question, uh, hypothesis question is also based around the lab idea, but almost all other question is exactly available, the answer is exactly available in the lab. All you need to do is to follow the description as well as the question and some research, some like analyze those Microsoft Excel files, if there's any, or analyze those Google Earth files if there's any. So that's all you need to do. So let's start with our first slide. So you will be introduced with these terms here. So number one is meteorcycle. So meteorcycle means the key substance is converted to different physical and chemical forms and moved across the earth sphere. So if you take carbon dioxide as an example, so when carbon dioxide comes from the trees, like trees evaporates carbon dioxide, as well as like industrial emissions. So when there is carbon dioxide, these carbon dioxide goes to the atmosphere, as well as trees doesn't evaporate, trees actually take in carbon dioxide. And if you look at the industrial emission, then there's lots of carbon dioxide in there. That carbon dioxide might be absorbed by the ocean. If the ocean absorbs that, then ocean makes some process to make that carbon dioxide into carbonate or other stuff. So the gaseous carbon dioxide at some stage of its cycle will become carbonate. So that's what the metro cycle is about. So that will be stored in the lithosphere, in the base of the ocean. So that way, that is the matter cycle. And then biosphere. Biosphere means the place that we live around right now. So the thing that you see in here, this all biosphere. If you see ocean, that's part of the biosphere. If you see air here, you can't see that, you can feel the air, that's also part of the biosphere. And lithosphere means the layer of the earth where you can see rock, or rock layer, rocky layer, like it's been mentioned in here. Then hydrosphere, you can understand by the name, the hydro means water. So all sources of water on earth's surface. And atmosphere, the layer of gases above the earth. So like you studied troposphere, stratosphere, and all other spheres, so that's above the earth, and those combined is called the atmosphere. So these are the term you should know before you proceed to the lab. Then next one, carbon cycle. Sorry, carbon cycle in biosphere, as I was already talking about. What happens with carbon when it's in biosphere? So it's form of organic compounds trapped in living organisms in soil. So like that carbon is trapped in us, that carbon is trapped inside the food that you are eating. When you'll be watching the video at the beginning of the lab, you will see how there is slow carbon and there is fast carbon. So those are the things you can understand by the carbon. So carbon can be trapped inside, carbon is still trapped inside us and in the food that we take. So in lithosphere, held in carbonate rocks and other materials like coal. You already know about coal power plant, you studied those in the previous labs as well, at least have had some ideas. So those coals also the source of carbon. So that carbon is actually, see, you can see them in a solid state as well. In hydrosphere, if you look at the water, dissolves in water to form carbonic acid, bicarbonate, whatever it is. So there can be there as carbonic acid. In atmosphere, they exist as carbon dioxide and methane. You already know about methane, one of the natural gases. And then there's two term you need to know: source and sink. I'm talking about this figure right now. So the source will be that releases carbon. So anything that releases carbon is a source. Anything that absorbs carbon is a sink. So if you take you as an example, you already know that you're taking in oxygen and releasing carbon, right? Carbon dioxide. So you are acting as a source for carbon dioxide or carbon. And we already know that the tree uh, breathes in carbon dioxide and tree leaves oxygen in the environment, right? So for in that case, since tree takes those carbon dioxide that we emit, that from the industrial emission or any other places, since tree takes those, tree absorbs those, then tree acts as a sink. So that's the idea of source and sink, and you will get to see this in here as well. So let me take you through this cycle. Let me turn on my pointer first, laser pointer. So yeah, if you look at this cycle, you can see that atmosphere photosynthesis takes almost 120, and that stores the soil carbon. And then like whenever the arrow is downward, that means the carbon is actually being absorbed. So that means the entity in there works as a sink. When the arrow is upward, that means the entity acting as a source. So if you look at this one here, carbon dioxide, trees are taking carbon dioxide by the process of photosynthesis, 120 plus 3, total 123 point of carbon dioxide petagram. Then trees at the same time, trees also emitting some sort of carbon dioxide in the way of respiration. So in that case, tree is also working as a source. So tree is an entity that works as a source, as a sink as well as a source. So when the arrow is downward, it means that we are talking about a sink. When the arrow is upward, we are talking about a source. Like in here you can see the microbial respiration and decomposition, those bacteria or other stuff in the ground, they also release some carbon in here, carbon dioxide in here, that is 60.60 petagrams of carbon dioxide. If you look at these are the emission. So the red one is actually, you can see, uh, yellow one is natural. So the yellow that you can see in here 120, the yellow one, that is naturally done. This 660 plant respiration, that is natural. Microbial, that is natural, there's nothing artificial in here. But the red one, you can see anthropogenic. So the red means, you can see fossil fuel, cement, and land use change. So by the human, we are adding 9 petagrams of carbon in the atmosphere. So I'm going to talk about that again. Just if you understand these diagram, lots of the question will be easy for you to answer. So if you look at the ocean as well, you can see that naturally 90 petagrams of carbon dioxide or carbon is being absorbed by the ocean, and then again naturally 90 being released by the ocean. So now let's talk about these 9 that's been made by the human, by the anthropogenic activities. So among those 9 that's been released in the atmosphere, 3 of them is being absorbed by the tree. So, and 2 of them is being absorbed by the ocean. That means 3 plus 2 means 5. So among 9, 5 of them, 5 petagrams of carbon is being absorbed by uh, natural process, by tree, by ocean. But if you see the difference, then there is 4 petagrams of carbon. So that is the annual increase of carbon in the atmosphere. So every year, uh, we are releasing more and more carbon in the atmosphere, and this situation is even degrading. Why? Because there's lots of deforestation is going on in Amazon or any other places of the world. Deforestation is going on in because of the industrialization or other stuff. So you studied some of those in previous labs as well. So since you are reducing trees, that means you are actually eliminating lots of source of carbon. I'm sorry, sinks of carbon that would have taken those anthropogenic carbon. But since there's less and less trees over the year, so that amount is getting decreased, and the human activities is getting increased, as well as the net annual increase of carbon in the atmosphere. And the white is stored, as you can see in here, or in here you see in the soil, 2300 is already stored as a fossil, 10,000 petagrams is already stored, and reactive sediments is 6,000 petagrams is already stored. So even if you look at these again, you can see that ocean is actually taking 90 as a natural process, and 2 extra that we human create. So ocean is actually taking 92 petagrams of carbon dioxide, I mean carbon, and releasing 90. That means every year ocean is actually getting 2 petagrams of carbon in the in here. So overall, if you look at the overall sum, that means ocean is actually uh, working as a sink. If you look at the net difference between them, ocean is actually also working as a source when it's emitting that again. But in overall, if it's taking 92 and releasing 90, that means it's taking 2 petagrams of carbon every year. That means ocean is actually acting as a sink for the carbon. As well as if you look at in here, you can see the same way, 123 of them, when it's taking this, it's acting as a sink. When it's releasing, it's acting as a source. But if you look at the net difference, it's actually acting more as a sink than as a source. I believe you understand this idea. Then let's go to the next one. If you understand this diagram completely, I hope every other thing will be easy for you. So next one, carbon emission is in 2010. You will get to see this in some lab. So there is some young fast carbon, and there is some old slow carbon. Young fast carbon, you will get to know that in the lab introductory video. But let me introduce you with that again. can easily move into and out of the carbon cycle. So when you take in any food, you're taking the carbon from that food. Again, within hours you will be evaporating through through respiration. You are releasing the carbon and carbon dioxide in the forms of carbon dioxide. So that carbon few hours ago was inside a banana or inside a food that went inside you, and then again you emitted that again and released it in the atmosphere. So that carbon acts first and moves from this place to that place. So there's young first carbon, and there's old slow carbon has been trapped in a form of natural gas, oil, and coal. Like if you look at the previous one, you see in the soil you can see 2300 petagrams of carbon is there. Fossil pool, there's 10,000 petagrams of carbon there. So these are the slow carbon that's been there for the millions of years. So they are slow carbon. They uh, stored there with the process of millions years, so they stored really slowly. And even if you look at these net ocean uptake, so they are also getting two, like every year they're getting 2 petagrams, and they are storing in the ocean sediment. So they are the slow carbon that we are talking about. So if you look at the carbon dioxide emission in 2010, all you need to know is to see the difference in here. So petroleum production emitted 34.4% carbon dioxide. Natural gas had 19.5. Cement production, land use. The most important thing, striking thing, is that coal fired or coal power plant emitted almost 41.6%. So still we are depending more on coal, which is really really bad for our atmosphere. So we will see which country is doing what in terms of the coal based power plant. So slash and burn, you also started those in this one sorry, in the previous lab. So uh, that contributes to deforestation, and if you go on deforesting your forest, then you are actually eliminating lots of sink, which will actually eventually make available carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That is already detrimental, you already know, lots of you. So that's it. And the global budget, um, I'm gonna talk about that hopefully. Okay, let me see. Okay, so if you look at the global budget in here in this diagram, the green one is for the terrestrial biosphere, ocean is the blue one, atmosphere is the red one, and land use and change emission is the brown one, and fossil fuel and cement emission is the black one. So just if you look at the trend ideally, so you'll see the fossil fuel and cement emissions, the black one has been increasing. That means the negative means, you see, you can see that in here as well. So if you look at this trend, that means -2 means you are adding like you're releasing more carbon dioxide, you see. Negative numbers are the loss of carbon. So you are releasing carbon in the atmosphere or anywhere, you're releasing carbon in the process. So fossil fuel combustion and cement emission, they do that. If you look at the land use change emissions, so if you're doing slash burn, if you're doing burning the forest, so that one is also releasing. That means in that process you're also losing some carbon. So where are those carbon going? Because of these increased activities, they are taking this carbon. Like ocean has tried to increase its uptake of carbon, biosphere got an increase in the carbon, and atmosphere as well as got an increase in the carbon. So if you look at the trend overall here, and if you look at the trend overall here, so the more they release the carbon, the more the atmosphere, biosphere, and ocean had to take it. So that is the idea of this diagram, that is called the global budget. So the more you increase the emission, the more the atmosphere has to take it. So it's not a good thing, definitely. So and then if you look at the Clean Air Act, if you look at in here, so since Clean Air Act or you already answered this question in lab 4, I guess. Clean Air Act. So what you did actually, uh, lab 4, I'm not sure, or lab 3, I guess. So Clean Air Act has been signed during 1987, right? So if you look at these graph in here, so these red means carbon dioxide, these nitrogen dioxide or nitrogen oxides, and then sulfur dioxide. So if you look at this time of 1987, they have been pretty much same, but after 1987 you can see that the nitrogen emission decreased significantly, sulfur dioxide emission decreased significantly, not the carbon dioxide emission. Why is that? There will be a question asked in the lab. So the reason is that carbon dioxide was not a concern for the Clean Air Act. So you see, Clean Air Act had no effect on carbon dioxide as it only regulated some pollutants, and carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. So Clean Air Act actually worked as a to reduce the pollutant, and sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide was regarded as pollutant that time, and carbon dioxide was not a pollutant. That's why we could see the impact of those pollutant decreasing, not the carbon dioxide. So this question will be asked in one of the one in your lab. Then major forest, tropical forest, temperate forest, and boreal forest. So if you look at the tropical forest, you already studied those equatorial belt. You studied those what do I say, um, equator, then tropic of Cancer, tropic of Capricorn. You studied the uh, Antarctic Circle, you studied the Arctic Circle. So the equatorial belt, like surrounding around the tropic of Cancer and tropic of Capricorn, you can say that equatorial and those region that has the forest, that has a tropical forest. And then if you go to the mid latitudes, bit upper in the north or bit down in the south, then the equatorial belt, you'll get to see the temperate forest. That means if in the USA. But if you move further from USA over Canada, you will be able to see boreal forest. These tree forest is really really important for you to know. I believe you already studied those in your lecture section. If not, just have this idea about their position, so that there will be 3 4 questions will be asked based on these 3 types of forest. So be careful when answering this question. Just make sure that you know which one is tropical, which one is temperate, and which one is boreal. So you've been given an example in here as well. Then green plants are both carbon sinks and carbon sources. I already told you about that. Net primary production, you'll get to see that. I will discuss more in the lab about this NPP, and these 3 things I will talk with you about. This NPP, positive NPP and negative NPP, in the lab. So let's move forward.